Okay. Oh, that sounded really loud today.
It's not me. It's a lot of aggression.
It is.
A lot of aggression.
I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. It is 5:02. And up first, I need a motion to approve the agenda for the board workshop meeting. Brian? Second. Okay. Nicole? All in favor? Aye. 7-0. And we're excited to hear from all our folks today. I have to recognize the exciting addition, if anyone noticed, the podium.
She's beautiful.
It's not falling apart.
Yeah.
Got. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. We're excited to start with food service. They're going to be talking about their experiences. I think Michelle and Christine are going to come up. Christine Lover, Michelle Savage from food service. They're going to be speaking about their experiences with universal meals.
There is no green light.
You got one now? See, you know the deal because you come to every one of these.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so universal free meals and the impact that it has had on the food service department so far this year, last 2 months. So we're following universal free meals, what we call Provision 2. So the executive budget was passed in April, and that included, you guys. Oh, sure. You want to click? I'll click. All right. Universal free school meals beginning in the school year 25-26. The school food service authorities participating in the federal school lunch or breakfast program are required to provide reimbursable school meals to all students at no cost. The state will reimburse the school food authorities up to the combined state and federal reimbursement rate for free meals for each federally reimbursed, reduced, and or paid meal claimed. The Universal Free School Meal Program requires school food authorities to maximize federal reimbursement by operating, opening the school year in CEP, which is Community Eligibility Provision, if eligible, or Provision 2. Since we're not eligible for CEP, we had to open in Provision 2, which we abbreviate to P2. So what is Provision 2? The school serves all student meals at no charge, regardless of their eligibility category. However, the school food authority is required to make individual student eligibility determinations, which means we still need to collect the applications, which hasn't been an easy task this year. We also use direct certification from the state and other sources to collect those categorical eligibilities. We also have to do a verification process, which we just finished. Meals are counted at the point of service and claimed monthly by category. So they're claimed by free, reduced, and paid this first year. The state reduced price and paid reimbursement rates will provide the difference between the federal reduced and paid rates. So this ensures that all P2 meals are reimbursed at the free rate. Okay, so what is the effective period for Provision 2? As of now, we've received confirmation that it will continue through this school year, through June. Future years will be decided once the new budget gets adopted, and that anywhere around April of 2026.
I was going to say, I admire your optimism putting April on the slide.
I know. So CEP versus Provision 2. Students at districts who are CEP and Provision 2 are entitled to free meals. The community eligible provision, CEP, is a status given to districts who have been identified with a student percentage of 25% free and reduced or more, and that was lowered from the original federal level of 40%. Fairport's current percentage is 17%. CEP is designed for higher poverty areas and uses a formula-based based directed on direct certification data, while Provision 2 is more widely accessible and uses an established historical claiming rate from the base year, which will be this year. Okay. I'm going to click open my. So sales as far as this year goes so far. I don't know how to do that. Yeah, please. I don't have this, so this is going to be a stretch for me on my slide here. Okay, so you can see on the top chart, you'll see last year's 24-25. Breakfast is the first column on what we served average. So you can see breakfast average in the district in September, we served 464 meals, which was about 9% of the population. And this year for breakfast, September, we're serving 1,028 on average, which is 20%. For lunches, last year we served on average in September 2393, and this year we are at 3288 for September. And then the same, as you can see, October grows. So 602 last year to 1367 in October on average. And then for lunch, 2534 last year, 3496 this year for October. And Chris has the figures actually from today compared to last year.
So today, last year, we were serving 643 breakfasts throughout the whole district. Today, we served 1485, okay? And for lunch, the exact same menu for today. Last year was 2479. Today was 3451.
And then below that is the chart for what the reimbursement rates are that we're receiving. If you can slide over maybe a little bit. Okay, so last year, it just shows, so last year for breakfast, we didn't receive cash for either free or reduced breakfast. We received $1.85 for a paid breakfast. And then the next column over is the aid that we received both from federal and state. And then it totals it out. And then same with lunch. You can see the difference and then what we received in aid. And then over to this year, what we're getting in aid. So for every meal we serve for breakfast, we're getting $4.75. I'm sorry, $2.56, and for lunch, $4.75.
This data is really important, and I just want to say hats off to Michelle and Chris for the work that they're doing. But when you look at this, a free meal, you can see we brought in for breakfast $2.47. When it was a paid meal, it was $2.24. So we were actually hoping that more students who are classified as free bought than if they were not classified as free, because we actually got more of a reimbursement between the state aid and the paid meal. This year, you can see the numbers are way up for breakfast and lunch, the reimbursement levels, and our participation is up, which means our revenue is through the roof. Now, on the other end, you're going to see our grocery bill is going to be a little bit higher, but I do want to throw another shout out because they are doing this with no more staff than what they had last year, and they're serving on average 15 to 20% more for breakfast and lunch. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks. All right, next slide. Can you do that? Okay, so some challenges and opportunities we've had. Obviously, increased cost of groceries. So when we did our new bids last year, the grocery bid was, we planned to have at least 10% higher in grocery, and we currently are seeing that as of October. Longer lunch lines, as you can imagine. We did reduce a few of the choices at breakfast, especially at the elementary school, because the lines were too long, and we had to open up multiple lines, especially in Northside Dudley, where breakfast is booming there. I mean, it's booming in all the schools, but there it's really affected how many service lines we have to have open. So we just reduced it just so less decisions for the little ones. We also added some badges at Northside Dudley, so some of the students are coming in now for breakfast and lunch with their badge, which is huge. So we can scan their barcode, and the line goes much quicker than trying to get the name out of a kindergartner. The name.
Or the children would put in their POS number, ID number, but that's hard for K through 2 because I don't think that's implemented at K through 2. Right, so we used to do songs with them, 914-333, so it's really.
So, I mean, we are encouraging that, and Northside Dudley really jumped on that, which was nice for us. And the teachers are obviously collecting those and handing them out again each day. And they also go to their classroom first before they come to breakfast, so that makes it much easier to get the badge rather than thinking that it's going to come back to school the next day. We are continuing to monitor the lines and ensuring that students have enough time. Obviously, the beginning is very slow. A lot of the kids never had breakfast before, and now they're coming through for breakfast. So it's a learning challenge. So we're encouraging the use of the ID badges, and like I said, monitoring and making sure that kids have enough time to eat. Maybe next year with the time change, we might get more students at elementary actually because they're coming in earlier, maybe less at the high school level, but we'll see. We have some upcoming capital improvements at Jefferson Ave, so that's an opportunity for us to really take a look at the lines and the number of students we're serving to see, if there's any way to maximize that space to maybe put a third line in. Not sure if that will work or not, but we're taking a look at that. We're also working with the principals for lunch schedules for the upcoming school year so we can get ahead of that piece of it and have a little bit more understanding about how much time they're going to have, what time they're getting off the bus. Is there a holding place for them when they come to school? Some schools have that, some don't. Possibly getting the little ones through earlier because they do take a longer amount of time to get through the line. And as Jeremy said, we are working with the same labor that we had last year, serving a lot less meals. So normally with labor shortages, most buildings normally have 6 staff in each of the kitchens, and with the exception of the high school and Northside Dudley, which each have 11. So currently we're short 2 part-time and 2 full-time staff members throughout the district. Just recently I was able to hire a few people, so that's helped. Universal free meals will lead to an increased need for staff. For that reason, we're currently assessing the staff needs for next year. It's not easy to find staff. So we've had multiple applicants that for whatever reason didn't work out, but they're not coming in at the volume they did 5 years ago. So in most cases, our managers and assistants are all working longer hours in order to fulfill the needs of the program. So it's just taking a lot more effort on their part for planning purposes. I mean, the orders now when they come in are crazy. When that truck pulls in on a Monday morning, the amount of pallets that they're rolling out into our kitchens to check in is nuts. But anyway, we are very lucky to have 12 subs in food service, which, I mean, they have been our savior this year. And most of them are able to work 2 to 3 days per week, so that's been helpful. And then if subs aren't available, Chris and myself will go out and fill in the gap when needed. Okay, and as far as nutrition standards, so USDA implemented nutritional standards back many years ago, and they're slowly getting to fulfilling those needs and those requirements. So some of the things that have changed just in this school year are breakfast cereals. So most of our breakfast, or I think all of them now, are no more than 6 grams of added sugar per dry ounce. And all the cereal companies have really done well with bringing their sugars down. And that's not the stuff you can buy in the store either. They make it specifically for school nutrition. The yogurt must be contain no more than 12 grams of added sugar per 6 ounces, and we are there as well. Flavored milk must contain no more than 10 grams of added sugar per 8 fluid ounces. So those are the things that we just had hit us for this school year, starting in July. And then by school year 27-28, beginning next July, schools will implement an approximate 15% sodium reduction for lunch and an approximate 10% sodium reduction for breakfast from what the current sodium level is.
It's been graded. It's been going down and down and down.
Yeah. And basically the manufacturers haven't been able to catch up with it because it takes a lot of time once they change that formulation. Also, no more than 10% of the weekly calories in school meals will be from added sugars. All right, Jeremy, you want to pop in here?
Yeah, so budget, right? So we start fund balance projections before the first day of school. I am big on fund balance projections because we need to know where we're going to be at. Please know this fund balance projection is as of November probably 10th, so it is still early in the school year. But what we did to analyze this is we looked at the sales from September and October, the reimbursements that we got from the state and the federal, and we divided it by the amount of service days, school lunch days, and school breakfast days sold. So we think we got a pretty accurate number. If anything, we think it might be a little low. Groceries are still planning out because, again, you're not getting your bills till a week or two later. So at this time, we are projecting about a $400,000 gain for food service. I will keep the superintendent updated on a monthly basis as we get claims in, as we get grocery bills paid to see where we're going to end the year. But I am confident that we will see an increase definitely over last year. Another thing that we want to look into too is future budget salary increases. You're going to see down there the different rates of pay for all the different schools, and you can tell we're probably one of the lowest right now. There's a reason for that. Remember, last year we did have a loss of $612,000. Okay, $250,000 of that was planned due to added lines at Northside Dudley, but that means the other $375,000 was not planned. So we were very strategic when we were looking at the increases for this year because we didn't know if sales were going to increase. We had the idea, but we didn't know. We didn't know how expensive groceries would be. So this is definitely something we're going to look at when we're setting the rates and talking to the board next year for future rates of cafeteria workers because we don't want to see people leave and go to other schools. And we also want to attract new people as well because, as we said, we do have short staff. So again, we have rising costs, we have rising revenue, which is great. So now we're looking at ways to maximize revenue even more. We don't have a lot of shrinkage, right? I would say we don't have a lot of waste. You know, shrinkage, a fancy term for saying food waste and what we throw out. We don't have a lot of that, but we want to maximize our sales because the more sales we have, the more reimbursement we get. So in turn, the more profit, end of the year profit we're going to have. So something we're continuing to monitor. And again, the percentages are up like crazy. I would love to see 100%. I know Michelle's probably shooting me daggers right now as I say 100%, but I would love every kid to eat because it's not only good for the program and it generates profit for the program, it's also good for the student. And we talked about some of those difficulties, some of the challenges we've seen, students getting to class a little bit late. I do want to throw a shout out to the principals. They've been great to work with. Michelle and myself, I know Chris too, have been in the kitchens, talking to the principals, seeing what's going on. And it is slow at first, but I'm proud to say we're continuing to get better. I know the student board members last month talked about Martha Brown, so we did focus in on that and try to talk there. I'm sure we'll get a good update today on JA. And I saw when the capital project came up, you're like, yeah, we could probably use a third service line over there. So we're always talking, always looking for better things, but I'm pleased to say we're trending in the right direction as of now.
The other thing is too, we get government entitlement dollars that we use to buy either or process the government food into product for the program. And we're working on our meals from last year, so it's based on how many meals you served the prior year. So next year we'll get more money as well because of the additional meals that we're serving. So that will help us. It won't help us this year, but for next year.
I just want to say one thing about the late buses, and things happen, you know, like a bus hit a deer the other day, and so we stay open later for breakfast, and our managers always have the doors open and their minds open, and they're very thoughtful Minerva Deland stays open way past the closing time. So our staff really, really are there for the kids, whatever time they get there, and just kudos to them, so.
I have a question. So looking at last year where there was a deficit, how is that managed financially? Like how is that covered and is it back paid or?
Yeah, so the food service department, as of last year, was able to keep, or 2 years ago, I'm sorry, was able to keep 3 months of operating expenses in like a savings account. So think of that as fund balance, like we say we have the 4% in the general fund. We were allowed to keep 3 months of operating expenses. That totaled to about $800,000 to $900,000. So we did have that in our, I don't want to say reserves, but in our checking savings account. That 600,000 did deplete that, so now we're down to about 300,000. So that is how we covered that. If we lost again, or if we lost in excess of what we had, the general fund would have to pick that up, and that would go to the taxpayers to fund that. But I am proud to say that did not happen, and this year we're trending in the right way, but that is why I'm looking at it on a weekly basis, monthly basis, because if it's going to hit the general fund, I have to make sure the superintendent is updated, because school lunch cannot carry a negative deficit balance.
Can I ask, have there been any like supply chain issues with like food coming in, and with all the school districts doing this, I would imagine there might be shortages of.
There's very little
Groceries?
right now, very little, which I know, I know another school district talked that there was, but we haven't experienced that. But it's challenging. Chris does the order, so it's very challenging.
We're always projecting, like today's menu was projected a month and a half ago, and it was ordered in a month ago. And we always try to stay on top of items that we know are gonna be hard to come by. We did have some vendor issues with our milk, where milk wasn't being delivered, and we have to figure it out, okay? So we asked other districts, so we figure it out. It hasn't been as bad as COVID was. COVID was horrible with supply chain. And everybody's feeding from the same pool, okay? And I think our vendors so far have done a great job, but it's the connections that we have with our vendors and keep it that way. We haven't run into trouble. I'll call you tomorrow.
Our biggest issue has been milk this year, because Upstate Milk closed their
We bought a
Rochester.
cow, right?
Pardon?
We bought a
Yeah,
cow.
yeah.
It's just out in the courtyard.
Yep.
And it would probably some days be easier to just milk our own cows and have it available, because it's just between milk leaking cartons all over our walk-in coolers and being shorted on a regular basis. It's insane, and there's one milk vendor to deal with. So.
In that same vein, oh sorry, is there enough room to store the extra stuff? Do we have space and freezers and fridges and everything?
We're very good at figuring that out as well, spatially.
Minerva's, it's the toughest one to maneuver, because Chris has managed to be having stuff delivered to the high school, and then we're lucky enough to have Buildings and Grounds will deliver our stuff out to the buildings from the high school freezer, because the high school freezer, thank God for that. Yeah.
It's quite an operation. when you
Yeah.
say it. I'm gonna invite some resident experts. We have our student board members
Can
here.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask real quick, should we be changing salary sooner then? Like if we're projecting,
That's an excellent point. Something, I think it's still a little early, as of right now for just a comfort level budget-wise, but definitely something we can definitely look into in the near
As we-
future, for sure.
As we go to the new year, we're maybe talk about some staffing analysis and adjustments, because you're right, I mean, let's take care of our
our
essential
people are
staff.
working that hard, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when everybody's in.
Yeah.
You know, if someone calls in, it's a game of chess, actually.
How about our students? Do you have any thoughts, reflections on?
So I definitely have noticed a big increase in the lines, just because so many people want to buy lunch now that it's free. I definitely do a little bit more, and I think it's great. Like, then it saves me from packing my lunch, my mom from packing my lunch sometimes. But when we talked to the JA kids, they said that a lot more people definitely buy lunch and breakfast, but they haven't noticed a crazy increase in like waiting, which was really good, because that was one of our biggest concerns, since Martha had said that. But that was really it. I didn't have like nothing like major has stood out except for positives from this.
Yeah.
And yeah, JA, they didn't have
The
anything
JA
to
kids
say.
were very excited to talk
Oh.
about breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, and they loved that it was free and
Maybe
how.
they're more patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that all the challenges that you mentioned, our students are saying, well, we're not seeing it. And there were some, challenges in the beginning of the year with lunch lines, et cetera, but you guys have definitely adjusted.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, oh, sorry, go ahead, guys.
I was just say when we met with Martha Brown, that was in October, and they said the lines were a little bit long. But then you just mentioned that you specifically looked at like Martha Brown and the schools that had issues with the lines, and so
Yeah, I think there was some problems with how the tables were being called.
That's what
Yeah,
they had mentioned.
that's what the kids
yeah.
And we're not in control of that.
Yeah.
I get
But yeah,
that.
and in the
Now what?
beginning, things are always going to be a little slower.
Yeah.
But now things have picked up and our staff, when they're off for the summer, they're off for the summer. And they come back and it's almost like relearning and getting back up to speed where we left off, so.
I always say, you know how long it takes to plan a wedding? The details, all the different people you're hiring and the amount of people that you have there. We do that every day, so.
For a much larger wedding.
Yeah,
than anything.
exactly.
Mhm.
We're the biggest restaurant in Monroe County,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But our staff, thankful, very thankful.
And
You had a great question. Oh, sorry.
No, we're thankful to you guys. This is the Universal Meals was such a big advocacy point among boards and school board members for a long time, me being probably the loudest person about it, especially on our board. And so very appreciative of, we threw this gets thrown on you guys, now make it happen. And you guys, with the challenges, are making it happen. And I know we're appreciative when the rubber hits the road that this is seeing what it looks like. And, Jeremy made the point that kids are getting food and kids are able to eat at school, which is awesome and really, really, really great. I guess my one quick question on this is the numbers are, do you expect these numbers to kind of, the increase is about like 15 to 20% per month. Do you expect those to kind of hold steady throughout the year? Or are they going to go
I
up?
think they're going to keep creeping.
Okay.
Usually our highest counts are in June, to be honest with you.
We're all so tired
We're
of
so
packing lunch.
I was just gonna
that's-
say that.
That's the other thing.
Figure it out.
Yeah, they've already lost the new lunchbox. so.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We're on our second one. Can I ask a quick question before we wrap up? Because it ties into when you were talking about milk and as well as JA. When we were on a school visit there, actually it was last spring, but a little kiddo asked about lactose-free milks. Do we offer dairy alternative milks to kids?
We have to have a doctor's note
Okay.
to offer anything that there might be a, lactose intolerant, any type of allergen, with a doctor's note saying what to provide for the child.
Mhm.
And then we keep that in our file and put it on the point of sale so it pops up. And then we offer them soy milk, Milk for Life. Are those the only two? Yeah. So those are the two options that they have. Some choose not to drink milk, so that's on them. I also have parents that will call because they're vegan and they're looking, and if it's not really an allergy, there's not really anything that we do have things on the menu that they can have, but whether it's what they want is another, story, so.
I'm curious, and this is a much bigger issue than Fairport. This is a much larger issue, but there's like kind of this movement away from milk, and that there's actually a lot of more benefits to drinking water for lunch, and that would actually probably serve kids even better. So I just wondered if you ever saw us offering other opportunities than
Is that
dairy.
is that regulated?
It is.
Well, we have
That's
to
what I
offer-
thought. That's what I mean. I think it's
We
way
have to-
above.
We
yeah.
have to
It's
offer
the
milk.
USDA.
We have
You
5
have to.
components that we have to offer according to the
has to
USDA. One of them is milk.
Mhm.
Nothing else falls under that. It's just milk.
Yeah.
And then we have the protein, grains, veg, and fruit.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to offer milk, and it's a choice. It's not a must. So have you guys watched the video of like K through 5, what's in a meal, or
Yeah.
the K through 8 and the high school one? Yeah. So it's the myth of you have to take it. You don't have to take it. So
That's a good point.
Yep.
That's a great point. And a lot of kids have water bottles.
exactly.
That's, yeah.
The
There are a
bottom-
lot of kids that don't take milk,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and because they have their water bottles,
Yep.
so.
It's too bad we have to offer it because maybe we would need less.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate the
thank you
report.
guys.
Yep,
And I'm
thank
sure
you.
we'll be
Very
checking
much.
back in. Thank you for your reports along the way too. I know the board appreciates getting those statistics periodically, so that's helpful.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Should I leave this up here?
Thank you.
Good luck, have fun.
Okay.
So right now we're moving along to our multi-tier systems of support presentation. Function-based thinking will be the topic. We have Lisa Benson, Director of MTSS, coming forward, Director of Student Services, Deborah Miles, and I think we have Kathleen Vicante to come up and talk a little bit about function-based thinking.
Thank you for having me back. I always enjoy coming to talk to you about all.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I see Tony come out, I know.
Yeah.
I agree with the computer.
Yeah, so I'll go over our implementation plan, and then I have the very talented Kathleen Vicante with me tonight. She's one of our behavior specialists. She supports Minerva and the high school, and she recently led a joint faculty meeting of Fairport High School and Minerva staff, and they learned for the first time about function-based thinking. So she's going to share her experience with leading that through and some of the follow-up comments that she's gotten from staff since then. So I'm very excited to get to that. Okay, so again, just a review of how we make changes in our system. We use implementation science, so we're nice and slow and steady. Oops. Sorry, I'm like looking on this. All right, I'm good. Okay. All right, so we start off with exploration. That's where we're identifying areas of need and researching and selecting our strategy. That moves into installation, where we're building awareness and training, and that process takes 1 to 2 years. If everything goes smoothly. Then we move over into initial implementation, where it's more throughout our system and we're monitoring for fidelity. And then once we're at full implementation, that's the stage where we're like, well, this is how we do business here, and our efforts shift toward sustainability of an initiative. And that, in best case scenario, takes 3 to 4 years. And you can see there's like little loops between all of the circles. That's because it isn't as linear as it looks, right? There's always a feedback loop going in case if we need to go back and check something at another point. Okay, so before we get any further into this, like what is function-based thinking? Function-based thinking is a proactive approach to understanding student behavior by identifying the function of the student's behavior. When our system can engage in this type of problem solving, it really helps us to get in front of student behaviors before they become problematic and ingrained. So in a nutshell, what you need to understand is that all behavior serves a function, and our behavior moves us toward what we like and need, and it moves us away from what we don't like or don't need. And there's 3 categories that we're always moving toward or away from. The first is tangibles, right? Stuff, activities. There's activities that we prefer, we move toward, activities that we don't like, and we try to move away from. Sensory input is the other category that we move toward and away, right? We move toward things that physically feel good to us, and we move away from things that physically feel bad to us. And then human attention, right? We are social animals that evolved in groups. We are very motivated by obtaining and avoiding attention, both from teachers and peers. So when we're taking a function-based approach, right, when we observe a behavior, that's what we're looking at, right? We're asking ourselves, like, what is the student moving toward? What are they moving away from? And how can I change the environment? So if it's a moving away behavior, they're less likely to want to do that. Or if it's a moving toward behavior, but it's maybe in a way that isn't pro-social, right? How can I build you a healthy path to that thing that you need or want so that our group functions better? So exploration phase, so this was started last school year, 24-25, and the identified need at that point was that we really needed a tier 2 level behavior plan. At that point in time, all of our formal behavior plans were living at the tippy top of the pyramid. In order to get one of those plans, you had to participate
and a functional behavioral assessment, which is a very intensive data analysis and data collection to assess function of behavior. But just as I had just described, like you don't need to get into that level of detail to think functionally and engage in some simple problem solving. So we wanted to have that as part of our system. So in doing that before, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So if a kid was having, they needed a skill to develop,
Mhm.
it went right up to that. There was no kind of formal intermediary. I'm sure people tried things, but like,
That is a good question. So, yes, there were definitely other things that people were trying, but it wasn't as coordinated as I would have wanted to see, right? So when we're kind of stabbing in the dark a bit, right, we waste time, right? And we're trying things that maybe aren't as effective, but when we look through this lens, it helps us to get to the answer quicker. And a lot of this planning has to do with coordinating adult behavior, right? We say that behavior plans are for kids, but they're absolutely not. They're for adults so that we know how to support kids better and have them be successful. So like this, yeah, absolutely. Because we can differentially reinforce stuff that we don't want when we're not coordinated. So, or my mental health people know what that means. So anyway, so to begin this rollout in this exploration phase of it, we really had to make sure that we had adequate capacity to move it out to our entire system. So at the starting point last year, certainly all of our six behavior specialists are very expert in this, but there are 6 people supporting 500 staff, 5,000 kids. Right, like that isn't a model that's going to be successful. So we had to make sure that all of our mental health staff, which is quite big, that they can all engage in function-based thinking. Now that doesn't mean that they're all doing like high-level functional analysis, but can they engage in that process of thinking about, is a child moving toward or away something, and helping facilitate that conversation with peers. So we spent all last year training our mental health staff, and we started with the kickoff last superintendent's conference day. We did a 3-hour training. It was led in-house. Kathleen was one of our trainers for that. Our behavior specialist led it, and that was the kickoff. And then all year last year during the department meetings, we kept chipping away at it and practicing and getting good with it so that we would be ready for the next phase, our installation phase. All right, installation. So once our mental health staff was trained up, then we started this summer with our administrators at retreat. Jen Romanowski had joined us and done, like a 90-minute training introducing our administrators to function-based thinking. And their immediate feedback on the spot was, so when are staff getting this? So that was what I was hoping they would say. So that is what we did. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay. So going into this superintendent's conference day, we had all of our mental health staff come together, and we had secondary special education teachers join us, and we planned what those trainings would be for the faculty meetings this fall. So those faculty meetings with the trainings just happened. They happened in October, and I think the middle school, I think they went this week. So they are all up to speed with doing function-based thinking, or at least learning about it for the first time. The goal for this school year is for teams to, the school building, to try 3 function-based plans. So that felt manageable. We have 8 buildings. That gives us a sample of 24 by the end of the school year. We're continuing to use our department meetings to go through, look at them, help build our skills internally as a mental health staff as we're helping to move the rest of the system forward with function-based thinking. So moving into next school year, function-based thinking will be added to new teacher orientation. So this idea of like that we're getting closer to, this is how we do business here. All right, welcome to Fairport. We use function-based thinking to problem solve student behavior. So that will be a piece of it. I would expect more widespread use of Tier 2 plans. And the more plans we do, the more teachers are engaged in it. They get more coaching from our mental health staff in implementing it. And we will continue to have those professional development opportunities for teachers. And in fact, right now, this year, for teachers that elected to do Instead of being observed for their short, they wanted to participate in a professional development. One of the professional development opportunities is to participate in a Nearpod where they can get more practice with function-based thinking. So we'll have in-person trainings. We already have asynchronous trainings available. So we have lots of plans to keep the professional development going because it's a simple concept, but applying it initially is like slogging through mud. So we just know it takes a lot of practice, and the more practice you get, the more fluent you are at it. And then we'll be in a place where we're at full implementation. Any questions about that before I turn it over to Kathleen?
I guess just kind of having been a teacher, is this another added thing? Or is this addressing a need our teachers are seeing right now? Like, is this a piece in our puzzle, or is this like another do this and, add it onto your to-do list?
They're already managing student behavior, so this is an efficient tool for them to use in order to do it. At our last mental health department meeting, we did a share out of, give us feedback on superintendent's conference day, give us feedback on how your faculty meetings went. And the mental health staff were reporting that teachers were very open and very receptive to the idea of learning to respond to behaviors in this way. So I think it's practical. You can apply it right away, and it'll end up saving a lot of time in the long run because you'll have kids engaged from the jump.
Awesome. So the Raider Way would be our tier 1 then, like our PBIS, and then this is.
This is a tool within the toolbox.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
I love it because there's a formal way and an effective way, a research best practice way to interact with students. I love what you said, greatest answer. We're already managing students. It's not an additional piece, but we do have a responsibility to provide staff with best practices, and we're doing it every day.
We sure are.
Managing students, supporting students.
And our student support teams, the more our MTSS systems and processes develop and our screening gets better and our diagnostics gets better, particularly at the K-5 level, a lot of the referrals that end up coming through SST are behaviorally based. They're not academically based as much anymore. So the teams are looking for, okay, so how do we move this problem solving forward? So it's a tool that is in the right place at the right time. Yeah.
Piggybacking on that question, what is the administrative component for staff? Like, are they supposed to be collecting data and reporting back on this, or is it just like a tool to use or an approach to have in mind?
Oh, that is a really good question, right? So the data collection piece, that's what makes FBA different from function-based thinking. So when you're doing an FBA, formal analysis, there's a lot of data collection involved with this. This is really a conversation, right? And we will write it down so that we remember what we're all supposed to do. But the data that we collect, it's the data that we already collect. So we use attendance, behavioral referrals, and grades. So it's not a direct measure of the behavior, it's indirect, right? I would assume that if your behavior is improving, that your attendance would improve, or you'd have less trips to the office, or your grades would improve. So it's not a direct measure. We just look at stuff that we're already collecting. And our early warning indicator team reviews that data every week because that's how Panorama is set up. Yeah.
Thanks. So not like a huge lift that they're having to.
No.
Thanks.
No.
Yeah, and I guess if you're already doing the other evaluation, it may save time if you don't have to go there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
They are very involved.
So many times, especially when you see staff coming in new, go teach, go manage behavior. And everybody went to school, everybody understands like classroom management, but we're really trying to put a research best practice way around it. And again, that's our obligation to our staff to make sure they have the right tools. And I think the mindset is the approach that we're really trying to instill in everybody.
So Brad, that gets right at a question I had. So in the exploration phase, were there other approaches examined, or was it just that this is just like the best method? It was more like we identified the issue and there was a good method that that was the exploration, was just marrying the solution to what we were dealing with.
Yes,
Yeah.
function-based thinking is a foundational building block for all behavioral problem solving. So in the absence of that, it really, it's very hard to be effective.
Okay.
And when problem solving around a behavior.
Yeah.
And
Got it.
the purpose of it too is ultimately to be preventative.
Right.
Like, so we're talking about it as being, we started with this functional analysis happening at tier 3 and it being very intensive and reactive at that point. But if we move that type of thinking down into the pyramid, into the lower parts of the pyramid, then we're at a space where behavior will not rise to that
Right.
problematic
Yeah.
level, right? Because from the beginning, when we see something that like looks a little out of line, we're like, oh, okay. So I see that when I bring out the red folder, that makes you go under your chair. So that makes me think, like,
Yeah.
what is in my red folder that
Yeah.
is making you feel like you have to do that, right? And then it would cause me to reflect on my instructional approach or, whatever it is about the situation that's making the child feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then we're not waiting, a month, he's been under the chair for a month, can't get him out. Then you're at functional analysis point, right? Because now you've
Right.
had a bunch of different variables happen.
So that's why I think Kathleen's here to sort of
Yeah.
talk about
Yes.
the practicalities.
Yeah.
So come on.
That's
up.
the
Yeah.
interesting stuff.
Good
Yeah.
segue. Yep.
And I think in a lot of cases, if you went to school to be a special education teacher and an elementary ed teacher, you
Here, I gotta.
well, you may have had some of this foundation, but
That's kind of what I was wondering. Like, this sounds
Yeah.
very foundational, so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
well, we must have been doing some element of already, but Lisa, you helped explain just kind of, it's more like tweaking the foundational elements, to how we're actually doing it, right? Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I've loved your questions so far, and I hope to also hit at them from the perspective of how we addressed it during the joint faculty meeting between Minerva and the high school. So to prep for this, after our superintendent's conference day this year, so behavior specialists were working in tandem, in pairs, to go to the different buildings to deliver this. So I was paired with Tori Boardwell, who's the behavior specialist for middle school. And she and I together worked to craft our secondary presentation that has all the same learning targets as the elementary, but we know our audience. So it's a different delivery. And what we did was I first sent out a poll to staff and asked them what are the behaviors that they see most often in class that can interrupt learning but don't rise to the level of a referral. So those things that might be the slow burn. And then ask some very pointed questions about, in your classroom, do you do whole group incentives, right? To try to get at the idea of how is the class reinforced for meeting expectations. Some more explicit questions. And then, what are some things that you do to address behavior? So for about 135, 145 staff, I got 79 responses, which I thought was pretty great for secondary. So in preparation, we took all that and then broke it down, because in our presentation, we started with the MTSS model and wanted to explain that when we introduce function-based thinking, it's just thinking. We're not asking for a lift for a different practice every day, but we are trying to give a foundation in some structure to reflective practice. That's it. It's naming your reflective practice. So I think once we approached it from that perspective, the audience was pretty good. And from there we went on to talk about, we went into, well, what does this mean for the Raider Way? I'm proud to be a Raider. And we brought up the matrix and explained that within the expectations that we expect in all different places, when something starts to go a little bit off and we see an unexpected behavior, we want to think functionally to try to meet that expectation. But those 3 R's are the expectations, fundamentally. From there, we talked about what are some foundational classroom practices that we think that all educators could agree upon. And what we came up with, and this is K-12, so all behavior specialists, we're talking about these foundational practices. Physical environment, clear expectations and routines, active supervision, multiple varied opportunities for engagement, logical responses applied consistently, and positive function-based reinforcement of expected behaviors. So with the exception of that last piece, everything else is something teachers are already fluent in and address every day through the Danielson model. So again, not a lift, but just a perspective change. We did some, we went through a scenario, worked on something together, broke it out through the behavior pathway, and really talked about what does this mean for the classroom, and brought it back to the data that they had provided and put it into those 6 foundational classroom practices and shared it back. So when we wrapped up, we offered some after meeting drop-in times to further practice, and also shared all of the data back with staff. And it was pretty well received. Any questions?
Actually, I have a question. For, I think, maybe special education students, I would think that this is very commonplace for teachers to kind of look with that thinking and use that information for like a behavior intervention plan, which gets captured in a 504 or an IEP, which then kind of follows the student along. So people and teachers in the future kind of have that as a record keeping for students who maybe do not have that sort of special education background. Does this thinking get captured in Panorama so that if a teacher is seeing a behavior in this year, does it get captured somehow so that teachers in the future can sort of refer back to that and have a better understanding of where that kid's coming from?
So I think,
You want me to answer?
can I take this? And
Yeah,
then
go ahead, yeah.
Okay. So what you're describing is kind of a couple of different things. So if there's a behavior intervention plan in play, yes, that follows all the way. Depending on the need that the student's presenting, if we catch this quick enough, right? If we're really using our multi-tiered system model well, we're gonna catch things much quicker so that we don't escalate to red. We see a little bit in a yellow zone, needs some support. It's at that point where we turn the function-based thinking into a plan based on function-based thinking. And that plan does get captured into Panorama, but we don't track the data points the same way that we would for a BIP because it's not as intensive. It's not something that we're going through a consent process for. We're looking at the data that we have easily. And we did actually, I do have a plan running at the high school this year that came as a result of what was initially a request thinking about an FBA, but in looking at the students' data, we really weren't there yet. So the family agreed to work a different angle, and I'm very happy to report that things are going very well. I actually just talked to the parent the other day. So it's housed, we can track it, but it's not as labor and time intensive, but it gets at the need.
And I would hope then gives like the next teacher, for your example, for the red folder, to say like, red folder really seems to set them up, just buy a yellow folder. Like, but for that, but you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, hopefully.
Which I think a lot of changes have been made in terms of the processes within the building, so it's more consistent. So I think this just kind of is another aspect of how it's helpful.
It's great that it's been so well received overall. What were the main concerns, if any, that staff expressed?
To be very honest, I didn't hear any concerns after because the framing was, to all the teachers, you're respected as professionals. And we know that you're really good at what you do. We know that you handle behavior in the classroom. So this is just a tool. It's not, it's just a tool for you to use. So nothing yet, because there isn't a fundamental change in the ask, except for, can you change your reflective practice to start?
In listening to how it was rolled out, I think it's a credit to the rollout where you didn't start with a solution. You started with identifying what's going on, what have we identified, what are the issues that we need to deal with, and let's help you deal with them. Right? Sometimes it's tempting to go straight to, hey, I got this great solution to get by in that way, but it sounds like you did it a really thoughtful way, so appreciate that.
Can we do it again tomorrow with the middle school? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Teed, do you have any thoughts that you want to share? This is the team that you lead.
Yeah, they are much smarter about these things than I am, but I have really enjoyed watching both the administrative team and the work we're doing there. We just did another refresher the other day. so that they can continue to hone their skills. And then the way that they're very thoughtfully implementing, not only with the behavior specialists across the district, but then also slowly rolling it out as a practice for teachers. So I think when we do things thoughtfully like that and we lean into the science of change, things stick better. So we're excited about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, may I transition?
Yep.
Yep. We're gonna ask Terrence Elduff, and I think Mike, you're here to, Mike Stevens as COO, to come up with moral support.
Yeah.
Um,
He's my backup. Yeah.
You're welcome at the podium.
For the
Yeah.
for the past several months, we've been partnering with YMCA. Dr. T's been doing a lot of work, and Jeremy Nardone as well. And we're looking forward to building our partnership. And you're here to share some important information on the Y program. And we look forward to sharing this with our community because lots of questions as we transition to 26, 27, and rep care will be a thing in Fairport. Thanks to your partnership, we are going to continue to grow it.
Absolutely. Super excited. Terrence McElduff, Vice President of Youth Enrichment for the Y of Greater Rochester. So we have a presentation, if it's possible to pull up. My computer died on the way here. Otherwise, I'd have it in front of me.
How'd I do?
Yeah. No, this is great. So very excited, very thankful for the process, working with Dr. T and the team over the past really the past year, going through that. So is this clicker? Look at that. Perfect. So wanted to give you guys an overview of what the division that I have the privilege of leading does. So we are currently in 19 different school districts across 4 different counties. Monroe makes up the majority, but we also have programs in Ontario, Livingston, and Wayne counties. We have 33 site locations. We're serving right over, today I think the number got to 1,807 children served per day. Registered in our programs. We have a team of 256 regular staff. We also have another team of seasonal staff, not counted there. And then we have a daily team of 44 full-time staff dedicated to this work. So here, a little smaller on the slide, sorry, but the numbers that are happening currently in Fairport. So I wanted to share, we've been, I looked it up, in the Fairport schools since 1990, operating YMCA before and after school care programs in these buildings. So at Northside Dudley, we currently have an AM and a PM care program serving right around 70 in both, 68 in the morning and 74 in the afternoon. Currently, we have a capacity of 180. At Brooks Hill, we're at 34 in the morning, 33 in the afternoon, and then a capacity of 90. And then at Jefferson Avenue, already on this newer time schedule, we don't offer morning care, but we do have an aftercare program with 84 kiddos, right almost at capacity. So serving in the mornings 102 students, in the afternoon 191. Wanted to share a little bit about capacity. So we are licensed childcare through OCFS. So we have to submit an application, renew that application every 2 years with the Office of Children and Family Services. And they come out, they look at the space, make sure it's safe space, even though it's a state ed building or a space like that. And they then measure the spaces we're in and determine, all right, the JA cafeteria is a great space. You can use this for your license program. You can have up to 90 kids in here. So there's some factors that go into their algorithm of figuring that out, square footage per kid, bathrooms, sinks, that type of thing, making sure there's exits and things like that. So that's why I wanted those numbers up there. At Northside Dudley, where, my prediction next year, we may see the greatest growth because of this time change. We're ready to receive, more than double, in terms of OCFS approval and capacity and things like that. We've got a great history with the administrative team over there of using the cafeterias and the gymnasium. So the challenge comes in when the school may have a need for that space during our program time. And that's where we have to work with the team, and we've already begun that work, of just identifying other spaces in the schools to get licensed so that when there is a need to take the cafeteria from us on an afternoon, we're able to move into a space that's sufficient for the program. Of our current participants in the Y program in Fairport, 82% are coming through private pay, 7% are Experience Scholarship, and 11% are receiving DSS, which is the Child Care Assistance Program that Monroe County does across the state. So that DSS is for families that are working, that are either at less than 85% of the state median income or under 300% of the federal poverty line. The county has a couple different buckets that they put families into in terms of which funding they'll receive. So one thing to point out, last year, a year ago today, this district, we were serving 6% at the DSS rate. So that has grown. So Governor Hochul, about a year ago, released newer standards that open the window for a greater number of families to receive it, and we're seeing that increase, not just here in Fairport, across all 4 counties. Every day we're talking to more and more families about that.
Sorry, what is the Experience Scholarship?
Great question. So the Y, as a nonprofit, we want to make sure no one is turned away for any, for a financial reason. So we have an annual campaign that feeds Experience Scholarship. So the Y does Experience Scholarships for childcare, but also for membership, for other programs as well. Great question. Yeah, so we work with them to figure out a rate. We have a sliding scale that they would then fall into based on their income and their personal situation. Mike and I would tell you, everybody's story is different. So we're going to work with that family. We don't just look at your numbers. We want to talk to you, get to know you, and see, where your family's at and what your needs are. So we definitely try to work with every family and just find a way to get them in the program, and whether that's both. We have a director of subsidies, Sharon Page, who works on my team, who meets with every family and tries to help them get as much of the DSS funding as possible, not just DSS for childcare, but making sure they understand SNAP and some of these other opportunities that are out there, and pointing them in the right direction. So we try to work with every family and make sure they're getting everything they need to survive and thrive. So quick little blurb about our program's philosophy. I want to point out the logo, our core values. My team, frontline staff, they focus our programming on these core values: caring, honesty, respect, responsibility, and connection. Connection is a new value to our programs. It was inclusion, but we want to take inclusion further. We don't want you to just be welcomed into the room. We want you to be deeper connected to the program, to gain, to grow, to learn, to find a deeper connection to everything we're doing. But our goal is to provide a safe place to learn skills, develop healthy, trusting relationships, and build confidence, whether that's in social setting or a little extra homework help, getting a healthy snack after getting that awesome healthy food at school. Love hearing all those numbers. That's really amazing what you guys are doing at the cafeterias. Awesome. So some changes for next year as we look to possibly doubling up, right, and serving twice as many kids in our programs with your guys' change. We're going to add that additional hour to the afternoons, right, maybe, and decrease that morning time, as we want to recognize all the participants at a family rate. I didn't put it up there because it's a kind of a big matrix, but our current pay structure is based on the type of YMCA membership you have, whether you're at the family member or a youth program member or a non-member, and then based on the number of days that you're coming to our program. But we want to eliminate the barrier of having to have a Y membership. Not everyone has the ability to have that or has the time to make use of the Y, things like that. We want to get everybody into the Y because we do believe there's so much wonderful things happening at our Y facilities. Fairport sits in a great location, not too far from the Eastside Family YMCA on 250 in Penfield, and not too far from the Shotland Family YMCA on Jefferson Road in Pittsford. So there's some great opportunities for families, but we understand, I'm the father of 3. I know how a weekly schedule goes for, families and things like that. So not everybody might be able to afford the YMCA membership. So next year we're looking to change that and remove that barrier. We'll continue to award our, Experience Scholarship dollars and continue to work on a sliding scale with families in need. And we're going to continue to work to help make sure families get access to those county funding opportunities.
Karis, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So I think currently families do have to purchase a Y membership, correct?
They don't have to, but in order to get the lower rate,
Okay, so just
Yeah.
clarifying, we do not have to do that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking to eliminate any kind of barrier there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I live at the elementary level. What, my kid has to go 5 days a week after school. What is the price?
So we do not have next year's rates
Okay,
available.
when does that usually come out? Sorry.
Typically first, like the new year.
Okay.
So our fiscal year runs kind of through March through April through March. We go, in December and January for board approval on our next budget year. And that's when we try to get the info out to families as soon as possible.
Okay.
And we'll have that out there, yeah.
What is the current family rate?
So I don't want to misspeak because I can never remember all the
okay.
numbers off the top of my head. So I am going to pull that up.
We can
or
do
I
it
can
at the
get
end
to you
of it. Yeah, at the end.
afterwards. That would
Okay.
be awesome just because I don't want to say the wrong number. Yeah. Not sure if I'm recorded here, but
And
awesome.
Yeah. So just, and then I'll let you move on to the other slides. So when parents, I think that is a big concern in the community, understandably, because there will be changes. So we do have a lot of folks that are asking us, when is it coming? When is it coming? Should we direct them to you for those?
Yeah, my office, my team, we would happily hear that, to speak with those families and please, I think we can share some.
So yeah, we plan on doing and time it up to when you get your approvals to have like a springboard to your page, so it's going to be easy button for families, so you don't need to remember.
Absolutely, and we'd love to collaborate on open houses and any event that's happening, January to June, so we can table and really communicate with them. Happy to speak to anybody, yeah. Sure. So typically we open registration April 1st. What we'll do is in March do some legacy registration of current participants and make sure they get a spot in the program for next year. We can look at that timeline as well as we have the next conversations with you guys and open that up. Registration is online, but we'll have staff ready to assist families that might need a little extra hand in terms of getting online and taking care of that. We try to keep it as simple as possible with the registration.
When the registration happens, is it like a camp registration where you have to refresh to make sure you get a spot? Or is it like, we'll have enough spots for everybody, don't worry?
Great question. I think that depends. I've been looking at Jefferson Avenue. I have only 6 spots available right now in that program. But I think with the commitment from the school district to work with us on space, and expansion of capacities and things like that, I don't think. Historically, it hasn't been an issue where, back in the day when there was half-day kindergarten, and the Y offered that afternoon or that morning, that was like lined up outside our branches at 5 a.m.
We talked about this as we were going through the process. We really need to assess our spaces because we need to make sure that we can put comfortable, safe spaces, and that will be part of like X amount of slots open. Right?
Yeah.
So that's, we need to make sure that we get that right 100%.
Absolutely.
But it looks like right now, particularly for Dudley Northside, we have plenty of room to grow, particularly for that program and Brooks Hill.
Yeah, I mean, my team, we love the NSD setup with the cafeterias and the gyms right next to each other, and everything we need is right there, in that kind of corridor. So, yeah, I don't think people are going to be up there having to click for Northside Dudley. And Jefferson Avenue, right, this isn't as much of a change for them at all, really, so my guess would be we're not going to have a major issue. And typically we got to that 84 number, I want to say last April, Jefferson Avenue, we registered about 45, and then we have rolling registration, so we ask families to, takes about a week to process the registration, and then we can have you start just to make sure we have all our ducks in a row for that kiddo to be safe and successful in our program and meet all of the OCFS needs, especially if there's medication or some of that other stuff involved. So,
yeah. I'm sorry. Just to echo what Brett said, we are committed to working with the Y and OCFS to license spaces so that we can meet the needs of our families. So, and I just wrote a note to Jeremy. We're going to have to keep an eye on JA when we redo the cafeteria, so that we have other licensed spaces that the YMCA can use. So.
Yeah, in terms of space challenges, Jefferson Avenue has historically been one, just because our program's been very large there for a long time. And Northside Dudley, has always teetered between that 70 and 100 already. So we're excited to get back up to some bigger numbers.
So with the OFCS certification, if we do need to expand and use another space, what is the time frame? Like how far in advance do you have to start that process?
Great, and that's why Dr. T's been awesome and Brett here and the team, because we got to have those conversations now to be safe, this spring. Typically, say it was happening right now to me, OCFS is about a 4 to 6 week process of getting them out. Again, challenging because this is a school space. I do supervise some programs where we rent space at a church in certain towns and things like that. Totally understand they need to come see the safety side of that, but we can't move forward until their safety inspector comes out. And right now they're booking out 4 to 6 weeks. So, but we have plenty of time to be, ahead of this as we look, over the next 6 months. I'd love to get it done before June, just so we're confident heading into the summer.
Yeah, perfect. And as Dr. T said to me, so JA, we're going to have the cafeteria renovation, so we're not anticipating that work to start till about January of 28, roughly, plus or minus a couple months. So we do have a lot of time, but still something we definitely want to get ahead of, so we're not scrambling at the last minute.
Absolutely.
And is the thought with the wrap care that for UPK, that it would just be in the same space that's already being used for UPK, since there will be other students in the building?
Yeah, we got to further those conversations kind of at the building level to see what that is. I mean, our goal for UPK is to provide, the right space for those kiddos. They're at a very different stage than, even the kindergartners are, So currently in East Arundecoit, we provide wraparound care for UPK kiddos. And what we've done is they start their day in the library and a little bit of a quieter space, and then we kind of rotate them through into the bigger spaces where maybe some of the other kids are. But regulation-wise, our UPK kiddos can only mingle with a kindergartner, just for age-appropriate play and things like that. So.
I think Dr. T's trying to get some.
Oh, I was just going to add that our building principals who house our UPK programs are eager to work with us on this. We know that UPK wrap care is a barrier for some of our families to say yes to the spots that they receive if they get through that lottery. And plug, UPK registration's open, so if you haven't registered already, go for it. But we will work with our building principals to find an appropriate space and timing, because the UPK hours are a little bit different than our regular school hours. So we'll tackle all of those challenges.
And we're very excited. Those are the best experiences with those kiddos and helping them explore, but getting comfortable and safe. And that's why it's exciting to be in your guys' space to do this, because we want to build that. We want to build those skills of how I go to school and how much fun I have at school and things like that. And our after-school programs or before-school programs can do that for a kid. A couple other updates, we're going to, like we've already talked about, expanding capacity as needed, offering AM care as needed. I'm excited to kind of curious to see the community's need in terms of AM care with the timing. I think we're going to learn a lot as we get close to the school year, and might have to pivot and grow with you guys through that as families figure out those bus schedules and work schedules and things like that, but we're ready for it. The great thing is that the space is the space, whether it's AM or PM care, so the approvals will be there. And our team loves more working hours and getting paid those extra hours, so they'll be there as well, ready to rock. I want to continue to explore partnerships. My dear friend, Mr. Clark's in the back of the room there, one of my first teachers at HFL as a student myself. Oh, young, very experienced, yeah. But we're excited. We do employ high school students right now, so this time change is a challenge for those students because they're going to be in school another hour, once our programs have started. So I'd love to, in the future, explore opportunities. Is there some work study or some opportunities to get them that work experience, in our spaces? We've already begun connecting with some guidance counselors just about promoting the jobs we have now. Very excited to share that our 3 full-time leads currently in Fairport are all FHS grads that have graduated sometime in the past 7 years out of the high school there. So an awesome team of young folks ready to serve. So then lastly is we're excited to provide care in these spaces on school vacation days. So historically we've provided those, we call them schools out camp. When you guys are shut down, we provide childcare. So typically that happens in our branch operations, but Fairport, kind of sits in a unique spot. So we want to open up and expand that and be on site for that. That might entail field trips, that might entail some unique, service opportunities and things like that for our kiddos. Super excited to provide that. Again, just another thing I want to work through with the school district. That might just happen at one location, right? I think of Northside Dudley, because I don't think we'll need 180 spots on those days, but it depends. I think as working families, right, superintendent's days, things like that can be challenging. So important to the school district for everything you guys need to do on those days, but it isn't a typical vacation day for a parent, so maybe we look at targeting some of those days to providing some extra space outside of our Y buildings.
Do you anticipate any issues with staffing the increased?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to have to double up our staff team. So I think we're excited. Our friends from the cafeteria team, I'd love to explore, sharing our job opportunities with the teams you're hiring during the school day. In Penfield, we actually have 5 wonderful cafeteria workers that stay in the elementary school or take a quick break for an hour, hour and a half, and then come back and work with the kiddos. And I think there could be some unique strategies as we look at, those folks might not want to work till 6 p.m., right? They've been there all day, but our high schoolers do want to come at, 4 o'clock after their day. So there could be some really unique opportunities to partner with you guys. So my eyes lit up when you guys were saying you need staff. I was like, I need staff. Maybe we can do this together.
I love that. I love that. I love that.
Jeremy and I are just very excited over here writing notes to each other about all the things that we need to keep doing.
I know, I got to buckle up, right? Yeah.
One of the things that we just wrote a note to each other about is we need to get our families their morning route pickup times as early as we can so they can decide if they will need morning wrap care or not. So if your bus is coming at, say, 6:45 a.m. and you're supposed to be to work at 7:15, you might need to do wrap care, right? So
Yeah.
we'll figure all those things out and get that out so families can make the best decisions possible. Not too many 6:45, sorry. I was just doing a for instance.
I'm not going to read these, but these are just 3 different parents from each of the schools here and what they had to say about our program. So wanted to put that up there, but happy to answer any other questions you guys have, or just so excited to continue this partnership in a more formal way and an expanded way.
So I would think that my friend Lindsay Reddick will be a very important contact as we develop.
Former YMCA staff member as well.
I mean,
Yeah.
did we know this? Did we know this?
Yeah.
Former YMCA staff member.
There you go.
Famous
Look what
former.
you produced.
Yeah.
But anyways, being a link to that communication plan, it needs to be, robust and consistent and always present, because many families, as we've said multiple times here, are really interested in getting this information so they could plan. And thank you for being patient and honest with us as we continue to push you to get that information out. You've been great partners, and these ideas are exciting. And I have my list too.
So many things on the list. I just wanted to add, right now is open enrollment for many healthcare and flexible spending accounts and things like that. So if families are listening and your company offers something like that, a flexible spending account or a HSA, is that the one for childcare? HSA? I believe so.
Yeah.
That might be something for you to look into and talk to your accountant about as a way to offset the costs that we know childcare might add to your family. So that is a way to pre-tax dollars. So.
Yeah, once you have that number, that is the most golden piece of information here in Fairport for next year. So once you have that cost number.
Sure, and our current rates are on our website, and parents, do have the ability to access those. And then, but as soon as we can get those rates out, believe me, our phones will start ringing if we don't. So, we welcome all the calls and really excited to serve more families.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I do. I was so blown away last month with you guys and hearing how amazing all you guys are. So our kiddos did want to just continue that, and you each get a beautiful piece of art. I'm going to put this here for our friend who had to step away. Absolutely, yes. These were made by before and after school participants. It takes a village, and you guys are doing it. Yeah. Sorry, you don't get to choose. I got one. Yeah. guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, and thanks for spending another night with us.
Yes.
I know you put your time into it.
Hey, no way. Let's go. Yeah. I might be back next month.
Yeah.
There's a good chance you might. Terrence, you live in Fairport as well?
I do not. I am a proud West Aronicoidian, but love Fairport.
West Aronicoid is very nice too. So. I used to live there. So, okay. Are we good with our questions, team? Okay. So that leads us to executive session. So I need a motion to enter into executive session for matters pertaining to the job history and performance of members in a non-collective bargaining unit invited to attend are Superintendent Brett Provenzano, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources Doug Love, Assistant Superintendent of Business Jeremy Dardone, and the Deputy Superintendent Dr. Tanya Wilson.
So moved.
Mary Caitlin? Ryan? All in favor? Aye. We will just reconvene to exit, and then we'll be back at 7 for our business meeting. Yeah.